At every high-profile banquet, charity dinner, or corporate celebration thrown by Hale Enterprises, the ballroom overflowed with polished suits, glittering gowns, and people eager to impress the most powerful CEO in the state, Richard Hale. Cameras sparkled like stars every time he moved, and there was always a small crowd orbiting him, investors, politicians, partners, and whoever wanted a slice of his success. But in the quietest corner of those bright, noisy rooms sat his 17-year-old daughter Emily, tucked behind her sleek black wheelchair as if she were a ghost only he could see. People didn't know how to treat her after the accident. They didn't want to say the wrong thing, so they said nothing. They didn't want to stare, so they looked past her. They didn't want to ask how she felt, so they pretended she wasn't there at all. Emily had once been the brightest light in her father's life, a ballet dancer who moved as if the world were her stage and gravity was only a suggestion. She had trophies, medals, videos that still lingered online of her dancing with such grace that even strangers would comment, "She's going to be famous someday." But that someday had vanished the moment a drunk driver slammed into her car. Everything changed after that. Her body healed, but her spirit didn't. Now, every time she watched people glide across a ballroom floor, it felt like someone pressed a bruise on her heart. That night, as the orchestra played a slow, elegant waltz, Emily rested her chin in her palm and tried her best not to cry. She wished someone would at least talk to her, or smile, or ask how she was doing. But she'd become used to this, being present in a room but not included. She wondered if people thought she was too fragile, too broken, or worse, a reminder of something tragic they didn't want to think about. She scanned the room and saw couples twirling, heels gliding across polished floors, laughter mixing with clinking glasses. Everything sparkled except her. She didn't know that someone, a complete stranger, was watching her with a different kind of attention, one that wasn't filled with pity or discomfort but compassion. Across the ballroom, 35-year-old Daniel Carter adjusted the stiff collar of his suit. The truth was, it wasn't even his suit, it belonged to his brother, and it was one size too big. But Daniel didn't care. He was only there because his delivery company invited all employees to celebrate winning a logistics award. His life wasn't made for fancy galas. He was a single dad, juggling work, parenthood, bills, and everything in between. But he had promised his 8-year-old daughter Mia a special night, and he kept his promises. Mia held his hand tightly as they walked through the crowd, her eyes wide with wonder. She pointed at the dancers and gasped in excitement. "Daddy, look, they're dancing like in the movies." Daniel laughed softly. "They sure are. Daddy, can we dance too?" she asked, practically bouncing. "Of course we can." Daniel lifted Mia into his arms and spun her gently. Her soft giggles filled the air like music. When he set her down, she twirled in her little dress, living her best princess moment. As he watched her, something in his peripheral vision caught his attention. A girl, beautiful, young, alone, sitting in a wheelchair with sadness weighing down her shoulders. Emily. Most people gave her a polite glance, then quickly turned away. But Daniel's gaze lingered. He didn't know her story, but he recognized loneliness. He had spent years feeling it himself, after his wife left, after bills piled up, after life refused to slow down. Mia tugged on his sleeve, pointing directly at Emily. "Daddy, why is she sitting all alone?" Daniel knelt beside her. "I don't know, sweetheart. She looks sad," Mia whispered. "Maybe nobody asked her to dance." Daniel looked over again. His heart tightened. "Maybe. Then you ask her, Daddy. Please. You always say everyone deserves to feel special." Daniel couldn't argue with that. He took a deep breath, straightened his borrowed suit, and squeezed Mia's hand. And with gentle steps, he walked toward the girl no one else dared to see. Emily's eyes darted around the ballroom the moment she saw the man approaching. Her heart rate kicked up, the same way it always did whenever anyone came near her wheelchair, half fear, half embarrassment. She instinctively tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and straightened her back, trying to look composed, though her hands trembled slightly on the rims of her wheels. It had been months since a stranger sat beside her without pity in their eyes. Daniel stopped in front of her with a warm, steady smile, the kind that felt like a soft light in a dim room. Beside him stood his daughter, Mia, small, wide-eyed, full of energy and life, like a spark of sunshine right in front of her. Daniel leaned slightly so he was eye level with Emily, but not in a way that made her feel small. He carried himself with a kind of easy kindness that she wasn't used to. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Daniel. And this is my daughter, Mia." Mia waved both hands as if she were greeting her favorite celebrity. "Hi. You're really, really pretty." Emily blinked, caught off guard. Compliments used to follow her everywhere. Now they were rare, and when they came, they felt forced. But this one didn't. It was sincere, simple, and it cracked open something inside her she had tried to keep closed. "Thank you," she whispered, her cheeks warming. Daniel nodded toward the dance floor where the music was picking up in tempo, couples moving in elegant sweeps. "Emily," he said softly, "would you like to dance with us?" Her breath caught. The question stunned her. I can't," she said, her voice barely audible. She gestured toward her wheelchair, embarrassed, almost apologizing for her existence. "I don't dance anymore." Daniel crouched down, not too close, not too far, just the right distance that made her feel safe. "Dancing isn't about legs," he said. "It's about feeling the music. If you want, I can follow your lead." It wasn't pity. It wasn't obligation. He said it like he meant it, like he saw her, not her chair. Her throat tightened as emotions swirled inside her. No one had asked her to dance since the accident. No one had dared. She looked at Mia, whose eyes were practically sparkling. "Please dance with us," Mia said sweetly. "It'll be fun. I promise." Something inside Emily cracked. The loneliness, the fear, the weight she'd been carrying for too long. With a shaky inhale, she placed her trembling hand in Daniel's. He smiled, soft and reassuring, and gently guided her onto a space of the dance floor where there was room to move freely. Emily braced herself for awkwardness, for staring eyes, for judgment. But what happened was the opposite. Daniel moved behind her, lightly holding the handles of her wheelchair, but letting her direct the motion. The music swelled, and he began guiding her in slow, graceful circles that matched the rhythm. Mia danced beside them, twirling like a little ballerina, her dress flaring with every spin. The air felt different here, lighter, softer, filled with something that felt almost magical. Emily's breath came out in a small laugh, her first real laugh in months. She lifted her arms, letting them move with the music, and Daniel followed her rhythm perfectly. Her wheelchair wasn't a barrier, it became part of the dance. She felt weightless, free in a way she thought she'd never feel again. Around them, people stopped to watch. At first with confusion, then with admiration. Some smiled, others whispered, but none of it mattered to Emily. All she saw was the movement, the lights, the spinning, the way Daniel didn't treat her like she was fragile or broken. On the far side of the room, her father froze mid-sentence when he noticed her. His eyes widened, filling with tears he didn't bother to hide. His little girl, smiling again, glowing again, living again. When the song ended, Emily felt breathless. Daniel leaned down with that same steady smile. "You're incredible," he said softly. For the first time since the accident, Emily believed it. When the music faded and the applause scattered across the ballroom, Emily's father, Richard Hale, felt something inside him break open. For months he had watched his daughter slip farther and farther away from the world, her spark dimming more each day. He had thrown money at every problem, hired therapists, bought new equipment, remodeled parts of their home, planned event after event hoping she might feel normal again. But nothing worked. Nothing touched the part of her that had been shattered. Until now. He walked toward her slowly, almost afraid of interrupting the moment. Emily sat in her wheelchair, cheeks flushed, eyes shimmering like they used to when she danced on stage. Daniel stood beside her with Mia, both smiling as if this night was nothing extraordinary, but for Emily, it was everything. When Richard reached them, he extended his hand toward Daniel. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I haven't seen her smile like that since." His voice cracked, and he looked away for a moment, gathering himself. "Since the accident." Daniel shook his hand gently. "You don't need to thank me. She just needed someone to treat her the way everyone else should." Those words struck Richard harder than he expected. He looked at his daughter, noticing the way she held herself, more open, more alive. He suddenly realized how much he had contributed to her isolation. Not intentionally, but through fear. He had been so desperate to protect her from pain that he ended up building a world where she couldn't breathe. While trying to shield her, he had accidentally shut her away. Emily, sensing the heaviness in her father's expression, squeezed Daniel's hand. A silent thank you passed between them, but also something deeper: respect, understanding, connection. She didn't know how to label it, but she felt it with her whole heart. Her father cleared his throat and gently touched her shoulder. "You were incredible out there, sweetheart." Emily looked up at him, a soft smile spreading over her face. "I felt free, Dad." Her father nodded, swallowing hard. "You looked it." For the rest of the evening, something shifted in the room. Word of the dance traveled quickly. People who had ignored her earlier now approached her with genuine warmth, compliments, kind words, questions, invitations to join conversations. Emily wasn't used to the sudden attention, and some part of her wondered if it was only because they saw the CEO watching. But something told her that the dance had changed more than just her mood, it had changed the way people saw her. Yet even with the crowd gathering around her, her eyes kept drifting back to Daniel and Mia. They weren't hovering or trying to impress anyone. Daniel stood quietly, laughing softly with his daughter, adjusting her bow because it kept slipping sideways. They were simple, real, genuine. That was what drew her to them in the first place. Later in the night, when the crowd thinned and most of the ballroom lights dimmed, Daniel approached her again. He knelt beside her wheelchair, his expression sincere. "I hope tonight was fun," he said. Emily nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was more than fun. It was everything I didn't know I needed." His smile deepened, touched with warmth. "If you ever want another dance, I'd be honored." Her heart fluttered. "I'd like that," she said, and she meant every word. Before leaving, Mia rushed forward and hugged Emily tightly. Emily hugged her back, feeling something break open inside her, something soft and hopeful. Daniel and Mia walked toward the exit, hand in hand. Emily watched them with a feeling she couldn't name, a mix of gratitude and longing for more moments like tonight. As the doors closed behind them, she felt a spark ignite inside her, a spark of confidence, of possibility, of life. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel like a burden. She felt like a girl with a future again. And deep down, she knew this wasn't the end of their story, only the beginning.